Welcome to the Quantum Awakening podcast, where we invite you to embark on a profound exploration of conscious evolution, human transformation, DNA upgrades, and the harmonious fusion of science and spirituality. Guiding you through this enlightening journey are your dynamic hosts, Sharon Milne-Barber and Amanda Bowden. With their extensive knowledge and expertise, they will serve as your trusted leaders of knowledge. Sharon, with her deep spiritual insight and celestial race knowledge, will shed light on the mystical aspects of your existence. Meanwhile, Amanda will share her expertise around manifesting, mind-body-soul connections, and how science and psychology are intertwined with spirituality. Join us on a transformative journey to enhance your perspective and to bring you enlightenment.
Welcome to our podcast. This podcast is about Atlantis and the Lemurians. And with me today I have Amanda Bowden.
Hello.
And I am Sharon Milne-Barber. So I was just going to start it off because I wrote a book on Atlantis.
Yay!
And it's now there's so much myth around Atlantis, isn't there? And I think there's a lot of stories being created because there's no fact out there. There's no literature. There's sort of hints have been found, and it's been passed down through distant memories and ancient codes within our DNA that sits within us.
Yeah.
And some of us are recalling now past lives in Atlantis, which is quite awesome. And when I wrote this book with my guides, they did it in a form of a story. And within the story, they placed the facts because they wanted to give over to humanity in a different way what happened in a generalization within the story. So Atlantis started over 300,000 years ago. Wow. And the reason it was called Atlantis is because of it was believed that they were like a water-based, as a name we've given them, it's like a water-based community.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On Earth, there were human beings which had evolved from very primitive form, and also there were still some human beings from previous occupation of celestial beings over, well, we're going hundreds of thousands of years. So there's a real mix going on here. And we were a beautiful blue planet. We stood out in the universe, and it was a really good environment for humanoid life.
Yeah.
Clean environment. So the Intergalactic Council and the overseers saw it as a possible experiment base to create an elevated humanoid race.
Yeah.
And there were architects of this, one of them being the Lemurians. Yeah. So there was 3 experiments from 250,000 BC to 52,000 BC.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
And then there was an extinction event on Earth which triggered the planet to shift her axis. After this, Earth was left to settle and reclimatise.
Because we're kind of experiencing the start of that again now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, it started to happen.
Yeah.
There were humans left from these experiments. So these experiments were supposed to be highly elevated beings. The first experiment, they created a humanoid race with non-gender. And then they decided to mix it up and create the 2 genders. And then in 28 BC to 18,000 BC was a time period of the 4th Atlantis. Then when that finished, I'll just give you a quick guide of timelines here for you. When that finished, there was another axis shift again, and the mini ice age started. So what they were doing, they were clearing away the evidence of the technology and the advancement of the human races that were living on Earth from their
So literally
creation.
being reset.
Yeah, being reset each time. And then finally they did a 5th experiment, which was again a mixed gender race, very elevated. Now they lived in 12 cities around the Earth. because the Earth, if you're going back to a time when the climates were more temperate, I'd say, not quite so extreme.
Yeah.
And these cities, one of the main cities was where the rumour comes from about the water. And it was built out in circles across a 14-mile span, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, because I think I've seen
With waterways.
Yeah, an illustration of that kind of thing. Where
Yeah.
you've got Atlantis and you've got parts out in the world as well. Because people believe that Hawaii is where there was a part of Atlantis, but they call it Lemurians. So I'm not quite sure where that comes in with that, but that's the belief currently that's held.
So the Lemurians were one of the architects of these experiments. They are a humanoid race. Back then, again, they're very elevated now. They're working up in the 8th, 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th dimension now in this existence in our time frame. Back then, they were an accelerated race. They were Taurian and Andromedans were also, so the Lemurians, the Pleiadians, the Taurian and the Andromedans were chosen for the DNA for this first experiment, and the Lemurians were the leaders of this, and they actually started the incarnation program, and they incarnated as well, so the higher selves within these humans, and so they were known as the Lemurian people.
Yeah.
But they weren't actually the Lemurian race. The humanoids were a mixture of DNA.
Yeah.
So that's where the confusion was with it. But they were part of this experiment. And as the experiments went along, their DNA was still used in future experiments. But because of the failures of the experiment, so there'd be like highly ascended humanoids, manifesting, doing all sorts, working, living on Earth, trying to sustain that, and it did for thousands of years. And these experiments were lasting over 10,000 years in some cases.
But for one at a time.
Yeah, it was over 300,000 years all of this went on. And then
eventually, and then there's our scientists that go, oh yeah, the Earth is only this old, so like pyramids and stuff
it's billions of
are
years
not
old.
that old.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
So they created in the fifth one, the beings the humanoids that were created were probably the nearest to us there was, because in the early ones, they were like lilac coloured skin and stuff.
Oh.
You have to read the book, guys. But when we got to the fifth experiment, they were more like we'd understand as us, so they're different creeds and things. And some of the creeds came from the fact that they didn't like do a test tube in a baby and produce thousands of people.
No.
They took some of the humans that were already existing and took their DNA and interbred with them. So they created the race from many layers of human life from history.
And then, like, guys, so me and Sharon usually chat before we come on the podcast, and I was like using the word like hybrid as in like a coaching perspective, wasn't it? And I was like, well, I don't want to just be a freelance coach. I want to be like a hybrid freelance coach, which means that you don't have to take one meaning, you could gel the two together. And so that's exactly what they've done, is come in and put the two together so they work in synergy.
Yeah, it's cool. And when even now, you think you're 1,000 years ahead of this, people are still resonating with Atlantis, Egypt.
Yeah.
They're resonating with ancient times, the ancient Indians around the world. And that's because this DNA, and then when they start to hear about Taurians and Palladiums, they're going, well, this rings a bell with me somewhere. It's because you got their DNA in you. You got their memories in your ethereal body. It's just quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's like where I just want to put in like so like I've got an ascension guide. His name's Tom, and he's from like the Indian side of things, and connected to Rishi. So that's like I can't think what I can't remember the word for it. Like begins with a V, but they're known within the blue rays.
The rays, yeah.
Which is, which is interesting.
And it's interesting you mention the rays, because I've just been doing our dimensions, and all the 12 overseers of the dimensions, which are rays, but they're using different colours with each one to distinguish them for us. Distinguish and not instinct, you know what I mean. These were the same beings that in the fifth Atlantis experiment.
Yeah.
They used these 12 beings. So each city had a temple, which could be in the shape of a pyramid, and the beings oversaw from their celestial height.
Yeah.
But they also created. There was such very highly ascended beings, but more highly ascended priestesses or priests, as the words they'd use just for our understanding, who could communicate with them, and they saw them as light. They never saw them in a form of human form. They always saw them as energy light, and they would communicate telepathically to them to help enhance this community. And they communicated around the world, and the cities were built on ley lines that could connect, a bit like the pyramids were in Egypt. Exactly the same system they use.
And like churches now nowadays, because they were all set on ley lines.
Yeah, and it's because it enhances the energy and the communication and the healing as well. It enhanced the healing energy. So if you went into one of the temples and you set that intention for healing, that it was a higher source that would come into you to help, into you, around you, to help you.
That's cool.
So but each experiment failed, and they had the overseers, not so much the Intergalactic Council, but the Light Council and the overseers decided to reset Earth each time to give it a chance to. It's almost like they wanted to wipe away the memory of all of that and restart and do another experiment. But some of those humans that were part of that still had that memory and still had that DNA, which I don't think they quite attuned into at the time.
No, and that you can see now where people are starting to wake up and realise their true origins of who they are, as our junk DNA is being unlocked by the higher photonic energy coming in from the light. That we've got like past memories that are locked into our bodies from our soul, I guess.
Higher self, soul, ethereal body, quantum
we're
body.
Clearing now because we're coming towards like Atlantis, where it was, the experiments come towards end and beginnings. That we're in that transition right now into a new period of new Earth, and all that past lifetime knowledge, skills, everything like that is coming forwards now, when we're remembering it.
Yeah.
And healing it as well at the same time.
Yeah, we are. So with the fifth experiment, which is like, it was, they got to that one and they decided this would be the last one. Previous to that, they called in many races to try and help them to see why they were failing. One of them was the Salatorians. And that's where my two guides come from.
John and Mary.
Yeah, John and Mary. And they are experts in incarnation through the universe, and DNA, and many, many species. So they were called in to support the experiment work, and they created the chakras within the body. Yeah, because what was happening with the physical form, the DNA was so elevated, we didn't have enough structure and balance within the body to cope with the energies and to have these energy points within us. So the meridians and the chakras, I think, the meridians are already there, but the chakras were brought in for alignment to connect with Earth all the way through up to the celestial energies.
Yeah, because that's, you're like there and I'm like now. That's like right now we can see, but we're kind of, it's funny, we're doing a cycle loop. And then like, our DNA is going from where it was and then it's opening up to the 12
they created the 12 helix DNA.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Then broke down again.
Yeah, and that's where we're going, but then it'll go into 24 and further and upwards as we expand.
So they created the 12 helix DNA when they realised the early experiments didn't work. They created the chakra system.
Yeah.
And then these were very elevated beings. Life was wonderful for a long time. And again, it started to disintegrate and go back. Humans were starting to drop back into the fourth and third ways of self-doubt, hate, fear, jealousy. And yet another experiment was crumbling. And the story shows a character called Talese, and this is a planet called Dakarat, where my higher self comes from. And they got to an elevated point of existence where they could join the incarnation program. So they pick one of their species to do this, who was a highly elevated person. And she was the first to incarnate, and she incarnated into the Atlantis time frame. So her existence was back in that time frame of our understanding. But again, I won't go into time now, but it's hard to explain. But they can choose to incarnate to what we could probably understand as somewhere in the future, but actually, because of the way time exists in the universe, or doesn't, when it loops in on itself,
because it's quantum and multi-dimensional.
Yeah. So she picked this time period, and she was a very elevated human. And she discovered, looking at certain humans during this journey on Earth, she chose, that she could sense when humans' soul base wasn't pure. And it turned out that there was a race of beings called the Directicons, who could be understood as a reptilian race, very highly advanced technical race, who weren't serving for the greater good, who saw this going on Earth and decided they'd disrupt it from within, but it was from within the human form, not as in. So they did it like they weren't changelings. They had the technology to create the reflection of self and go in. So have you ever heard when humans can think they can have two souls? So one can suppress the other. It's like that.
So basically, they're projecting out what they want you to see.
Yeah, and they want them to fail. They want them to go back into 3D way of thinking, war, fear, and that's what happened. The experiments, and it was the last three where they interfered over thousands of years,
which is currently like happening or replaying now for us, so that we can look at what's going on not only on the outside but within ourselves, and learn and take it as an opportunity to clear our karmic debt. Because really, on a higher level, we've asked these races to come in, because you can't have the light without the dark. You know, it's like the yin and the yang. You have to have the contrast for the soul growth. And I guess like that's where we can like whinge and moan that we're here, like, oh my god, I don't want to come back to Earth and stuff like that. But like at some level, on a soul point, we've chosen to come here.
Oh yeah.
And like, I know, taking learnings from you and others, that this is what my soul chooses to do, is come in at the beginning and the end of cycles, so transition, which now I understand where transitional coach comes from, because I didn't get it first of all. But so yeah, it's like a learning curve. Like for humanity, we go around in cycles, don't we? But this time we know how it can play out, so we're choosing a different way this time. People are going to come together and work together, and it won't happen the way it did last time.
No, it's what happened at the end of this experiment, when it was failing again, and they actually discovered the reason why. They shut it down again. And the Arturians, which are one of the architects and overseers of Earth, who were part of the DNA process of humanity, they actually set the task of eliminating these, what were they called again, reptilians, from the planet and from the soul freer from the humans. And one of the ways they had to do this was like basically like create another catalyst event. And the Atlanteans were given a choice whether to, so you're talking soul-based ethereal self here. They had the understanding that their human essence would go back, and they had a soul base that would go back, and life carried on. So they had the choice whether to go or stay from the result of the experiment, and carry on the earth. So it's almost like a sixth experiment was created out of these 5 experiments. And then for quite a while, the technology was imprinted in some of these humans, what they experienced. The knowledge was still there, and eventually other, like the Mayans and Aztecs, and were the result of this era, but obviously a way on in time. So, and they had the astrology knowledge, the farming knowledge, once the earth reset again, and they survived.
There is something that's popped in my head though whilst you're saying that. Is like, I'm quite curious minded, and then like, as humans, we've got a part in our brain in psychology that's called the reptilian part of the brain, right?
Right.
So that's where you go into your emotions. It can be where you get stuck like through negative experiences and different things if you don't bring yourself back into the conscious front part of your brain. And when listening to you when you're saying that, I wonder then if, because we are multi-transitional beings who have had many different past lifetime experiences, whether that part of us comes from having those experiences in a past lifetime, and we're learning and healing that part of us now in this lifetime, many of us.
Yeah, because they were in many humans.
Yeah.
They were doing it, through the back door, basically. There is such a thing as changelings that can walk among us, and they're here today. There's ninth ascension celestial beings, physical or light, who could come and walk amongst us, and they do for the greater good. I've just written about that in my other book. Atorians are one of them.
Cool.
Where they come down in their physical form, but their telepathic mind that was so enhanced, and these are people that can travel in their ethereal form and then come back into physical form in front of you. They can project out as they walk down the street. So they're walking down the street as a blue alien, but they can make everybody look at them like they're a human. So that's pretty out of it, isn't it?
So like, whereas you've named the race, I can't remember
Directly.
Yeah, them ones.
That's my.
We would know in the community, spiritual community, as service to self.
Directly, so they spell it DEREPLITICON. Directly-ticon. Reptile isn't in there, but the rep li bit is, and that's where they did actually look. The actual race themselves did have like a scaly skin and stuff, which we'd understand from our lizards, reptile animals. So that's how we've named them that, because there's still that memory of them within us.
And because there are different races out there, and just because they've been tarred with negative experiences and stories and stuff, not all reptilian races are negative,
because there's different greys as well.
And I think that's important to put out there.
Some people fearful of them, but actually they were here to help us. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting, isn't it?
So that's my very brief from 250 odd pages in my book what Atlantis is. I've always been drawn to Atlantis, but I've been told by my guys I did not have a past life in Atlantis.
Oh.
Yeah, but my higher self, her existence is from a planet that has history with Atlantis.
That's interesting.
Because it's obviously her ancient relative that had the incarnation in the Atlantis period of the planet.
What?
I know.
That's insane. If you could watch me, guys, I'm just thinking in my head. Just like mind blown.
I was talking about.
No, I'm like, what?
I know, it's quite. Because, no wonder I get a lot of headaches.
No, my brain's like, what?
Yeah, obviously you take what you will from it, and this is I really trust what my guides give me.
Yeah.
And you know, who's to say this isn't right? Because there's no written record. There's hints of Atlantis. There's stories of a race that had water, that lived, you know, but you've actually had celestial beings that have lived on Earth under the sea,
Yeah.
and they were here for 50,000 years, and that's before this.
So that's not the Lemurians.
No, that's not the Lemurians.
What are they? Don't know.
Oh my god, I'd have to go back into my books to.
Cool.
I need to start writing a list of them, don't I? That'd be a good idea. Write a list of them all, what they did. Yeah. Right, another job. Thanks, guys.
But like when you were saying about your past life experiences, I remember having a session with you, oh my god, years ago, and you always asking questions. I can't remember what happened, and then you said to me that I'd had a past life experience in the Atlantis experiments.
cool.
And I can't remember if you said the fourth or fifth one.
I can't remember.
I know, I don't know, just say I do. And that was cool, but like,
I've just got the word fourth.
oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See, that's
Oh.
cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Who's that, John?
No, Sam.
Oh, Sam's one of your new guys, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm.
So, like, from my perspective and what I've been learning around, like, the Lemurian race.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to stuff, and like, I love research. Cause that's just how my head works and stuff like that. So like, I've been writing some bits and bobs for my new book that isn't ready yet, like Manifest 28, and I just written some notes like around Lemurians. So like, from what I've learned at the moment, is that they are grid masters, and they're here to help with transitions through cycles, like I said, like from the end and the beginning, so literally transitions.
Yeah.
And like the transition of consciousness, like leveling up, as in we're going from the 3D energy and we're rising back up towards the 5D, which means becoming more quantum and multi-transitional.
Yeah.
So they're helping with that. They hold like seed codes for new frequencies that are coming in for the earth and stuff, and like if they incarnate now in a human form, or part of their DNA is being unlocked, they don't even have to say anything. You can just sit next to them, and then things
transmit it to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
which is different. So like, Lemurians can sometimes hold, like, it's funny, like beautiful memories of beings and grief of the cycles that we've gone through for the Atlantis thing, which we can bring through into our now incarnation, which is what we're getting rid of, like learning that like something might be happening right now and it's triggering people, and then they sometimes don't know where it's coming from.
Do you know, I've had 2 conversations with this week with 2 people who not people part of my spiritual work, who are very highly elevated in their jobs, and they've had a complete breakdown around them with their staff, with mental illness, family problems, and they're having to stop what they're doing to do mental health talks with them, like being a counsellor. And I said to one of them this morning as I was walking with her, I said, you know, this is the awakening, this is all this stuff coming out. She looked at me like I was an idiot, and I just went, oh yeah, no man, not the duck over there looks nice, doesn't it? So I was thinking, and it's exactly what we were talking about the other day, there's so much crap coming up and I'm hearing it from everywhere.
But what you could say instead, because this is how, like, I see it from both angles, so I see it as we're going through the ascension, and then I'm learning new languages in leveling up. So that's like, instead of ascension, but like you said, it depends who you're talking to, doesn't it?
I know. I hadn't had my caffeine, had I?
Oh, that's what.
And it was about 6 in the morning, and I'm like going like this around the canal path. Oh yeah, that's awakening. Oh yeah, that's a duck. Yeah.
Exactly. But then when people go through times of like waking up and thinking, oh my God, you know, questioning things and why is this happening and how is this all, it's all.
I think she takes on board what I says though.
Yeah. Probably does.
Yeah.
And then it just, like, when you do go through awakenings, it's like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. What the hell is going on? And it's all like bang, bang, bang. And then if you look at it from the other side and how, because it's not all like fluffy bunnies and stuff, is it? It's like you can get depression.
But most of the time it doesn't feel like.
No.
Yeah.
And then like you've got depression, anxiety, burnout. There's so many different things that are understood in that way. We're taught in a more holistic way.
Yeah.
So that's more like the.
I did give her some wisdom.
Can't think of your bloody words now.
I said to her, don't take on their burden.
Yeah.
Give it over to the universe when you've talked to them, and then carry on with your day. And she did go like that. She doesn't speak much, because a lot of faces. Not that very
So it
intelligent.
went in and she was thinking about it. That's good though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
that's the little seed then that you planted.
So anyway, we diverted slightly, but that's fine. That's what we do.
That's
I've got
just what
some
we
more
do.
knowledge about the Lemurians.
Oh, go on.
So when I wrote what's it called, A Journey Through Creation, Lemurians is one of the places they visited to talk about the seventh, eighth dimensions. And the Lemurians, thousands of years ago, were very similar to us, as in bone, skin, and whatever. As they've ascended up through the ascensions, their cellular structures changed to an understanding that they've got like a crystal structure within their bones now, because they're still flesh and bones.
Yeah, I remember saying this the other day.
And then they have a crystal under the skin that's born with this under the skin. They would use the word crystal, but it wouldn't be probably understand how. It wouldn't be like a crystal on our earth. It would be like an element that we haven't probably got, but it's nearest to crystal because it can hold information and knowledge. So this crystal comes out in what we'd probably understand as puberty, and when it appears, it has a pattern round it, so they have like a unique skin pattern that comes with it. It's like a fingerprint, really.
Oh my God, you were saying that. Sorry to interrupt you, but like when I was watching Star Trek Discovery, there's a guy on there, I can't remember his name, and he's an empath on there.
Yeah.
And then when he communicates with animals, a pattern appears on his forehead.
Oh, cool.
And it lights up when he's chatting, so there you go.
There you go. Well, you see, they do say to me that the Star Trek movies are channeled from them of an understanding and a level, so that one day when we are ascended enough to join them in the stars, or they'll come here, they'll be with us as well, then we won't be so shocked. It's already been part of our, it's already been printed in our, so it obviously be a few generations on this will happen, but it would be in the ethereal body, it would be in the memory, it would be in the ancient DNA of these programs,
because it's like,
so it's not such a shock then.
Yeah, like we said earlier, like you planted a seed which goes into the subconscious, which then grows as they want to learn more around what it is, and that's just planting the seed.
That's
and
what they're
it's up
doing.
to them what they do with
and
it.
They're doing it in so many different ways at the moment. This is we'll talk about that in the next podcast, won't we? More spirituality meeting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, science. So I was going to go off on a.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, I want to stop there, so I want to talk about that, this one.
No,
right,
and
back to your list.
Oh, yeah, I'm a list maker. This is like, I don't know what side of me it is, but anyway, so like, they say like Lemurians are generally part of like cycles, so we're currently ending a 26,000 year cycle, which started in 2012, because it wasn't the end, was it? It was...
No, it was
the end of that cycle,
again,
and then the beginning of a new one.
Yeah,
I know.
We all thought the world was going to end. But wasn't that film brilliant? They made 2012. Have you ever seen it?
What film?
They made a film 2012, like the world ends. I love that film. Amazing.
Oh, with all the weather and stuff. That
they
one,
just
or am I on the right
completely
one?
the whole of them. They have massive earthquakes and things, and they have to. China's the one place. They build these ships, and people get to these ships, and it's just like the story. And then there's a massive flood, and these ships go out, and the only part that wasn't touched was Africa, and they end up heading for Africa, and so there's a massive floods and things.
It sounds a bit like Noah's Ark, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's like the shift of the plates and everything just went tits up basically.
Yeah.
All the cities went in the ocean, and it was, it's pretty.
That's how some of the cycles kind of
I like films like
change
that.
and stuff like that, though, don't they?
Anyway, back to Lemurians.
Well, no, because that like literally goes on with like transition of New Earth is like a birthing of a child.
Yeah,
because it come with.
I don't think
like,
we're going to have
and...
a massive one like that, but we are going to have some climate things go on that's going to, we're going to lose places like Venice and stuff in the near future. In our lifetimes because of the ocean rising and stuff. So
yeah, because essentially
so it'll be like a restart in that way.
Yeah, because even though like our scientists and stuff say we're going through climate change, which I get, but what they're not saying is like we will go through the warm period, but then after that comes a really cold period because the poles are tipping, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And then like I just go on your like a karma being released as the light comes in, which is what's happening because the photonic energy from the light right now of our sun, because it goes through cycles just like we do.
I can feel it.
Yeah, it's literally anything within your body or what's not aligned is being get out or let it go or deal with it, heal it. So it's like letting go of stuff. I see. Yeah, like then you've got like clearing memories from like the fall back in Atlantis side of things.
So that's why the quantum trance healing has been triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. And then like you said, associative manifesting, but then I don't know why I've got on you, like I've associated manifesting with the fall as in I know what it is. When you come towards like the end of a cycle, I'm moving my hands.
Yeah, I'm watching around. They're fascinating. If only you could see it. There's a ball of energy in the middle.
Is there? What was I saying? Yeah, so manifesting. Like when you come towards the end of an old cycle and go towards a new one, because of all the light energy that's coming in, the speed of which how we manifest things as in whatever race in the past was been on Atlantis or like now human beings speeds up.
Yeah, because we're ascending.
Yeah, and so like sometimes manifesting can be associated with negative stuff because it was towards the fall of Atlantis.
Well, they manifested it to happen for the things to wipe away everything, all the evidence. But there is still evidence lying up in the Arctic.
Yeah,
and I know they found something. So
yeah, because when that melts away, it'll be a massive thing for humanity.
Yeah.
So literally, like releasing repressed memories from the past of grief to happiness, which is kind of what yours technique does as well. Because like when you're going back down a timeline, which could be like in Egyptian times or even Atlantis or something like that, and finding the stories around the past lives that were lived back then, you can like literally tell that person in front of you what that experience was and then how it can be healed in the now, which is pretty interesting, and then flip it so you can be happy.
Cool.
Yeah. And activating the galactic you.
Celestial.
Yeah, celestial, star beings.
That's why they're changing the language now. That makes sense completely because I'll just put that out in the front of my new book I released today, The Art of Trance, that in the first 2 pages is about how they're changing the language and the words they're using, and it's all to do with this, this change you've just been talking about.
Yeah, because it goes in with quantum energy and how we're exploring and expanding our consciousness. So it helps other people.
And not everybody's going to grasp what's in that book, but at the end of the day, 10 years time, that's what they're going to be using.
Yeah, because
In a way,
literally,
yeah, because it's a process of time. All of this that's happening now is just a trigger for something pretty big for Earth. And there's a lot of spiritual workers being put in place, which will teach the next generation, is mainly when it's going to be needed, when things kick off, like, well, disasters and stuff are going to be needed to ground people and keep them on the spiritual path away from fear and everything, just for humanity to reset itself again, probably, into a better way of being.
literally, that's what I've got on you. Is like, this is the beginning of a new story, of a new positive life full of positive abundance, and letting go of all the bullshit.
Like that.
And moving forwards.
It's a massive, massive picture. But what I say to people listening to this, we paint disasters and things in the future. We have to face there is going to be a massive change on this earth. But you must live your life for now, because we're the groundworkers of change. So live it as it is now. We can't worry what's going to be in 100,000 years' time, can we? It's
No.
We just are aware of it for our spiritual growth and ascension, and that's why you got to put all this positivity and stuff in place, so that when there is catalyst events, we actually are on a higher perspective to say, okay, well, we don't want to go back to 500 years ago or 100 years ago the way we were.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity. We've got technology to help the planet. Come on, let's start again. Let's get this going. Let's change the way we live. We've got an opportunity, and that's the way it should be looked at when there's any change. It should be like,
Yeah.
what can we learn from this?
Because essentially, when those changes do come in and act as catalysts, by then, like you said, everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of mindsets will be more advanced then. And that's why, like, elevated starseeds are here as way showers. And sometimes it can feel lonely because you are, like, ahead of the curve. But the main reason being here is, like you said, to put those resources out, and then they're left as well to pass down to the next generation, the next wave of generations coming through, to work on it and go forwards and grow from it as well. And the new innovations that are coming through with these new generations.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting, I was listening to the news this morning, because obviously D-Day is coming up in June.
Okay.
And there's an area in France where they built a massive memorial, and they're now building a teaching space of knowledge around the war.
Yeah.
Because at the moment we've got, because of us 16-year-olds, or even 15, because some lied about their age, very young, they're about 96 now. Not many of them are alive, so we're going to come to a point soon in the next couple of years where there's going to be nearly nobody alive from the Second World War to tell the story.
Yeah.
Which is quite, not a scary thought, but it's quite like, woo.
Daunting.
And because they don't want it to be swept under the carpet, because obviously new history comes, they created this educational centre so children can go there, listen and learn about the war, which I thought was brilliant, because my dad was in the war and I saw what it did to him. And I think that's, not, as I said earlier, not forgetting about our past. You could be 500 years down the line. You could be living in a wonderful world, but you still mustn't forget about how far you've come. And again, this is in the Star Wars movies, film Star Trek, where the world has gone through war. It's not in a good place.
Yeah.
There's some science was there, and he creates I can't remember what it's called. He creates a starship. This guy that's got the type of signature that other beings can see that we've reached a point in technology. And it's the Spock's race. Oh, who were they? The Vulcans.
Yeah.
Were flying by in the solar system, saw this flight this guy took of this technology, left like an imprint, and came down and landed and went, hey. Literally, that's the story. So it's like in the future, and people are living more primitively probably than they are now. And it was like, well, hey, you've got this science, you know, you can be amongst us, we can help you. And that's what happened to us one day.
Yeah, because that makes sense, because that's why the children who are coming in wave after wave are going to be here to inspire and help innovate new ideas as we go through these changes.
Yeah.
And they're more on the sciencey side of things.
So Lemurians, guys, were a big part of our history, and they still are. They still work with us, and perhaps we should close on that soon, because we can talk about other stuff when we do the next podcast, because that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because it leads on nicely to what was it? Science meets spirituality.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, my dear?
No, not really. Only that, like, my higher self is towards, like, the, what do you call it, blue avian part of things with Lemurian influence on it. That's where the manifesting stuff comes from at my workshops.
Do you know, it's very interesting, these rays, because when I did that YouTube past regression view of Egypt, Mary said about the rays being part of that time period, because they came with that race of beings and helped manifest stuff. Do you remember?
I do now, you reminded me.
So they've been part of our history for quite a long time, but it's almost like we're just starting to realise it.
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it?
There's not many rays who are awake spiritually right now and remember who they are, and that's changing.
It is.
Cool.
Right, if we know anybody called Ray, then hey, there could be a Ray. I do know someone called Ray, actually, and they're very spiritual.
It's my higher self.
Right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that. As always, we say it from our perspective, our understanding, and then you'll take from it from what you want. So I'll see you on the next podcast.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.